Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers from around the world, talking with makers from around the world. Here's Jamie Page, Steve Twydell, Chris Cute, and now your host, Richard Morley.
Hello, 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 and an extra hello as well for Steve. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, and wherever you're listening. Joined me as always, Mr. Chris Cute.
What's up?
Mr. Jamie Page.
Hello.
Starting his episode 1, season 3 with the team, Steve Twydell.
Well, hello.
And our awesome guest this week, it is Ellen from Crafts with Ellen. How are you, Ellen?
Hey, good night. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good. I will be with you in about 2 minutes. I appreciate you've already had a bit of a pause. Just to run through the normal weekly shout-outs and thank-yous, which are a bit thin on the ground this week. So if you do like to get in touch with us, then we love it, particularly because it drags this part of the show out over on Instagram, Facebook, and all the rest of the places. But this week's shout-outs and thank-yous go to Harnell Media, Mr. Ruben, and Jim Dockrell over on the YouTubes. And on, I believe it was Facebook this week, John Kenneth Baker Jr. That's all one person, I'm told by Jamie, not 3 or 4 separate people. Like I've already said, we do actually enjoy it and get a little kind of warm, fuzzy feeling when people actually talk to us outside the podcast and get in touch. And so please email us. We do like that. We need friends. This week's podcast is brought to you in part by Yorkshire Grit, Woodturning's Abrasive Paste. Our good friend Chad over at Mancrafting, who's still giving away one of his awesome Mancrafting mugs each month to one of our lucky listeners. And as I'm sure you know by now, Pam from Highland Boxes. I've got some little treats through from Pam. Those, I cannot stress how awesome her pen blanks are, people. So definitely worth a look if you haven't seen them already. If you want to find out more about our sponsors, then head over to our website, makersinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors. And I believe all the information is on there, including information for Harnell Media and our other kind of background supporters as well. Is that right, Jamie?
I don't think Harnell Media is, but I will put it on there.
You know, it's only the start of the 3rd year.
Hey, I said I'll do it. It may be 6 months from now, but it'll be done.
You might sound like the other half.
Jesus, you sound like a wife there, Richard. Jeez.
I'm saying nothing. I'm just going to move on. Chris, do we have anything from your corner of the internet this week for a random listener question?
I don't have any questions, but I do have an explanation that I'm going to give because Richard, you brought this up a while ago. And I also have a question too. So first, the explanation. For those of you who are listening and wondering how in the world we number these things, this is now season number 3, and this is the first episode. So it's season 3, episode 01. So therefore, after today's show, all of the episodes that are going to follow this up until season 4 anyway are going to read, episode 301, 302, 303, 304. And if you don't understand that, then that's your problem, not mine, because it's pretty easy, I think, to understand how we number our episodes. So moving on from that, Richard, I do have a question, and it's a personal question. It's one that I have in my mind that I've been, hanging out with you guys for 2 years now. This is the beginning of the 3rd, and I'm still trying to expand upon my British vernacular. So it be. So let me ask you this stupid question. What exactly is a spanner? Now, I know that a spanner is a wrench, correct?
Yes.
Is it a specific wrench, like an adjustable wrench, or is it an open-end wrench, or is it just a word that describes any wrench at all?
It's a type of wrench unless you put links in the chat.
But it can also be a type of Richard.
Oh, see, now he's getting personal. You get him on for literally 5 minutes and he's in there with the insults. A spanner, we would refer to a spanner as any kind of wrench. So it could be an adjustable spanner, it could be a ring spanner or an open-ended spanner, it could be a ratchet spanner, anything like that.
All right, so I have a follow-up question to that. So a spanner is a wrench, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe we also have wrenches. So we'll have like a torque wrench.
That wouldn't be a spanner then?
No, but it wouldn't be but you might call it a wrench as well. So what my point was, you might call that a wrench, and you'd also call a spanner a wrench, whereas we call a torque wrench a wrench and a spanner a spanner. So you'd have one word to explain it, and we have two.
Yeah, I'm just like the confused American in me just goes, why don't you just call it a wrench then? Why did it's like I think, and I'm just because look, I don't want to be mean, but you British I think have a tendency to invent words with more syllables than are need be, because you could just say wrench, that's one syllable, or but you guys choose to go spanner. That's two syllables. And so
Okay,
I don't know.
Right. All right then. All right.
Is this an attempt to be smarter than you are? Or I don't know.
The last thing I want to do, Chris, is go down the whole international route and you speak English and blah blah blah. But I think you'll find we were speaking English in England a long time before you guys even knew that your country was a country and existed.
So okay, but you're just basically saying that it took us to clean up.
We can call it what we like because we made it up.
I get it, but all right. So it just took us. It took us to clean it up.
This is actually quite interesting.
Can I just prove a point
Caroline,
here, Chris?
go on, Steve.
Well, I just want to prove a point that it's not just the British English that say certain words a certain way differently to the Americans. Helen, can I just ask you a question? In your last video, what metal did you put around the rim of the bag inside?
Oh, God.
I used aluminium.
Boom! My point is proven.
Okay.
Thank you, Adam.
Obviously,
It's a long story, but I was always taught to use British English, so it's still British.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
In all seriousness, I know we always joke about the kind of rabbits, rebates, and all that sort of stuff, but I genuinely think this could be quite an interesting and hopefully civilized topic for an entire episode. Because
you guys, you have to know. I'm just kidding, right? I mean, I'm not serious with any of this. I mean, come on. I'm just.
We're deadly. We've done.
Well, yeah. Apparently, that's go ahead.
But no, I'm glad actually that Steve jumped in there, because I was just about to say, take it straight back to Ellen. Ellen being now, let me get this right in my head. You are Dutch, but currently living in Denmark. Is that right? Or are you Danish, yes, currently living in the Netherlands?
No, it's Dutch living in Denmark.
Dutch in Denmark, right? Because when I met you at Maker Central, up until that point, I was convinced that you were Dutch from your accent. And then I saw Denmark, that you were living in Denmark, and I was like, oh, I did Danish, and maybe I got it the wrong way. Anyway, that's by the by. The point is, we're back to you, because you are our topic tonight, and we want to talk to you and find out about you, as I'm sure the 39 viewers that are currently watching live and commenting in the live chat saying, shut up about spanners and wrenches and aluminum
this week
stuff
on the Spanner podcast.
Yes, very much so. So let's find out about you. Now, as I've already, we won't go into the age, although you did tell us. You're Dutch living in Denmark.
Yes.
So let's start there. How did that come about?
Sort of a coincidence, or an impulse decision. I was at my last job, and I wasn't looking for a new job, but I came across a job advert for the PhD position I have now. And it was just a topic I really wanted to work in, and there's not a lot of places where you can. So I said to my husband, like, oh yeah, I found this really nice job, but I'm not going to apply because it's in Denmark. And then he said, well, why don't you just apply and see where it goes? And we can always talk about it if it becomes real. So I applied, not expecting anything, and then suddenly I was hired. And then we had to have a proper sit down and say, are we actually going to move to Denmark now? So that was an interesting weekend. And we decided to go for it, to go on a little adventure and move here.
Excellent. So you're still in Denmark. Is that sort of open-ended, as in you might just stay after your PhD and like?
Yeah, I mean, when we went here, we said we're not going to decide until I'm done with my PhD. because it takes a certain period of time and it makes no sense to leave before that. But we didn't decide anything for afterwards. And I mean, we bought a house now, so it's a bit more permanent. But still, we haven't really decided if that's going to be long term or just a couple more years or whatever. So yeah, we'll see.
So it's still an adventure and still potentially quite exciting, and no kind of definite routes.
Yeah.
That is kind of exciting. That's the bigger adventure than I dare go on, I have to say. But, so what exactly is your PhD in?
I'll try the short version. That's always difficult for researchers. I'm looking at how you can use environmental impact calculations during the product design process. So when you're developing a new product as a company, how can you take the environmental impact into account already when the product doesn't even exist yet?
Right. Okay. So that, I mean, does that expand on sort of everything from the manufacturing process to the materials that are used, or
to the product? To the product itself, I would assume, because if you're going to be in the business of producing a product that is a disposable product, then it's going to be important to know what material that's made out of, so you understand what kind of environmental impact that disposable product has. I mean, for instance, a paper cup, Richard. I mean, is it better to have a paper cup, or what if we want to make plastic cups? Well, then you probably are going to have more of an impact on the environment with plastic, obviously. So, okay.
Not necessarily.
Oh, we say score the American. Chris 0, the rest of the world 2 now. Go ahead.
No, but not necessarily. It could be, but that's what I do. That's my job. I calculate those things. Like, is it really, and what does it depend on? And that we call it a life cycle analysis. So you look at the entire life cycle of a product, from mining the raw materials to transporting them, producing the product, using it. Like electronic devices use electricity. And then disposing of it. And all of that, we try to calculate and then see what's important.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to be right back because I think the dog's eating something it shouldn't. So over to you, Chris.
Another network cable.
This podcast goes on a brief pause so Richard can stop the dog from chewing up its slippers. Ellen, you mentioned that you were married. How long have you and your husband been married? Are you newlyweds, or has it been, oh my God, I've been with this guy forever?
A little bit of both. We've been married for 3.5 year, but I have been with this guy forever.
Oh, well, congratulations for finally getting him to commit then. After 3.5 years. But you guys obviously get along quite well. Obviously, if he's willing to uproot himself for your schooling and things of that nature, he's probably a pretty good guy. I don't know. Did you bring him with you to Maker Central last year? Because I don't believe I met him.
No, he didn't come.
Oh, okay. Snob. All right, never mind.
Was that an interest thing, or was it more of a busy life thing? In terms of, he wasn't interested in Maker Central, or
it's not necessarily what he's into, but even if he wanted to come, I would have said no, which may sound a bit mean, but it's mostly that I know if I'm with someone I'm comfortable with, then I'm going to stay there and not mingle with new people that much. So being on my own made me much more involved in the whole thing and make new friends.
That I was kind of hoping you were going to say that, because I totally get that. I think if I'd have gone with Kat and Kat hadn't been quite so understanding, or just been happy to go off and look at things that she wanted to look at, I would have done exactly the same thing and given exactly the same answer. So that makes perfect sense. Awesome. Are you going next year to that?
I don't think I'd be brave enough.
Well, we are scary.
No, you're not.
I said we.
I'm not going there. Richard, you better go with something, because I've got nothing at the moment that's going to at least be clean.
I'm struggling myself. You are.
I'm so biting my tongue here.
Well, you said Ellen, in your kind of little bio, I guess, all the things that you do, and if anyone's watched your channel, they'll have seen a lot of the things that you've put on here, the knitting and the crochet. Obviously, that was a kind of mine and Kat's initial viewing of yourself. And I'm going to say it again. I think I've said it 3 times this evening already. Your link quilted blanket, which I only found out tonight that you still haven't finished, even though you told me at Maker Central you were about to finish it. We'll come on to that later. So you do cover a lot of different sort of disciplines and interests and mediums that you'd like to make with and enjoy. But where does it all start? I mean, what was the first? Did your gran or your mum teach you how to knit and crochet, or did you just see it and get into it, or was there making before that, or how far back do we go to find?
So most of the things I do, I taught myself. But like my mom was creative, and she did have a sewing machine, and she would make clothes for us. And on holidays, we would do little projects. But that was when I was very young, so I wasn't really joining in. And then I got a sewing machine for my graduation from university. That was my mom's idea to get both my sister and I got a sewing machine when we graduated. Because she had gotten one for her marriage, and she still has it and still uses it. So it's this long-term gift that's always going to be useful. But I wasn't really, I was using it mostly for repairs and just sort of fixing things, and not really to make my own clothes or anything. That came much later. But my first sort of own making experience, where I started doing things, making things because I wanted to make them, was way back when on a forum that I found on the internet. And it was a forum called Sprite Stitch. And it's actually a group of people that all do cross stitch of pixel art. So of Mario figures and like the Link figure and all that stuff. And I thought it was just so cool. It was an old-fashioned craft, but it was combined with sort of pop culture, and just the greatest bunch of people. Just like the maker community here is so supportive. Everyone's willing to help each other. We did how do you call those things for Christmas when you send surprise gifts?
Oh, Secret Santa type thing?
Yeah, we did that. So we sent each other things that we had cross-stitched. So that was sort of the first maker community I was a part of. And after that I just started trying lots of new things, because mostly I like learning how something works. Like knitting fascinated me because I didn't get how it worked. So I wanted to learn. But then as soon as I understand it, I can get bored of something. So then I move on to the next thing. And then a while later, I'll come back to it.
Once you kind of just accept the fact that knitting is basically magic, it loses its appeal, doesn't it? How do you take, several thousand meters of string basically and turn it into a jumper? Is just obviously magic.
Now you have to know the right words to say, and abracadabra, and yeah.
Yeah. Pearl.
Would this get back in the Middle Ages? Would this have gotten you burned at the stake, knowing how to do this? Is this the kind of magic we're referring to here, Richard? I bet
it's unbelievable undoing Christmas lights.
So that's magic.
That's magic.
What was it that kind of gave you the inspiration to start YouTube then?
Well, I was watching a lot of YouTube, and I was watching a lot of makers on YouTube, and I was so happy that I found those, because for a long time I only knew of Adam Savage and Tested, and those were the only maker videos I watched, and I absolutely loved them. And then somehow I found, I think it was April Wilkerson, and then sort of rolled into all the other channels, and I really loved seeing people share their experiences and also trying to teach people and seeing those developments. So I was really a big fan of that. And then I was at the same time in a period that was a bit rough for me. I was dealing with stress and burnout and needing to find a way to relax. And I figured out that making things really relaxed me. It gave me sort of this in the moment thing where I could only focus on what I was making. But but I have a tendency to sort of forget about myself and just keep moving forward. So the YouTube thing was actually almost a challenge I set myself. I said the first year I'm going to make a video every 2 weeks. And that pretty much forced me to take the time to make something. So I put a deadline on it, I put a reason on it, and I had an excuse. I was like, I have to take the time because I have to make the video. And at the same time, trying to give a little back to all these people that I've been watching for that long time.
That's awesome. I think there's a lot of people who can relate to that. Just because I totally get where you're coming from in that, because I occupied myself in my shop at home. This is before I think even YouTube existed. When I was working, when I was employed, I would force myself to get out into my shop just because I needed that time. It was almost kind of my own mental clinic for me to get out there and not think about all the things of everyday life and work and school and things of that nature, and allowed me to kind of just go blah, you know. That was okay. I get it. I get that totally.
Yeah. And I'm in my head all day. I mean, I'm doing a PhD. I sit behind a computer and I read scientific articles, and it's very much on an abstract level, and I'm in my head all day long. And it's so easy to come home, sit on the couch, turn on the TV, and just zone out and sort of stay stuck in that. Yeah, and like you said, with the making, it gets me out of that.
Yeah, Steve, I know Steve can relate to that very well as well. Go ahead, Steve. I can't hear you.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Is it working now?
It is.
What I was going to say, Ellen, I'd say that your degree is very intense. Like the work that you do is like you mentioned that you're in front of the computer a lot, but I'd say there's a lot of swatting up and reading and stuff like that. So I'd say it's more of a release for you to actually get into the shop and just go mad with the tools, or to sew, or do whatever you do. I mean, is it a hard course that you're doing?
I mean, yes. I mean, a PhD isn't easy. I think that's that's sort of by default. It's a lot of abstract. It's a lot of reading, a lot of thinking, a lot of making sense of things, and there's a lot of structure you have to follow and rules and all these sorts of systems in place. And like you said, it's a real freedom to come out in the shop and just do what I want to do and follow my feelings. Like I'll start something not knowing how I'm going to finish it. I'm just going to go in and see what happens. And that's the complete opposite of research. Like you have to plan everything until the tiniest detail. And that's fun in its own way, but it's nice to get out of that.
Interesting that you touched on.
Yeah, I mean, as Chris said, that's similar to me. Sorry, my mic's not working.
Well, I'll jump in there then. Well, our newbie friend is trying to work out how to run the internet. But one of our viewers, Ellen, you touch on the whole. I think you said, but it's very different to being at work, the whole making thing, and how you'd watched other people. Dave G Designs is asked, of all the projects that you've watched on YouTube from other makers, which one do you wish you'd done, and what would you like to try next?
That you haven't done already. So what out of all the things you've seen other people do, what have you looked at and said, man, I should have done that, or I should do that, or, and then I guess the follow-up to that question is, what do you have in mind that you haven't done yet that you want to do?
All right, so the first part of the question, it's not like I wish I would have done that, but I really want to do that now, is when I saw one of the first videos that I saw of April, was her building the, like, what do you call the roof outside above a deck?
Uh-huh.
I don't know what the word for that is, but she built that at her house. And I remember thinking she was so badass, like she would just do that on her own as a woman, which is something I hadn't really thought even about as an option. Somehow I had that prejudice in my head that wasn't possible. And it's just like, wow, you know, she just does that and she built what she wants. And yeah, that I wish I would have done that, but I know I will do it now. But that was really got me excited, like, that is awesome. And what I want to do, that list is very, very long. And I mean, we've bought a house now, but it's very much a fixer-upper. There's a lot of things to do. But in that same spirit as with April's video, there's a lot of things that I now want to try myself. And I have no idea how to do it, but neither did she. So, you know, let's give it a try. So we're in the middle of renovating our bathroom. And I'm going to be installing a new sort of hidden toilet tank thing. And I'm going to be doing the tiling and the shower and, you know, yeah.
Well, you're going to need to find it sooner or later so you can use it.
Yeah, don't hide it too well, because I mean,
what are those toilets called where you don't see the actual tank?
I don't know. I've never seen them. So this is
Concealed toilet.
They just have a button on the wall and not the.
Yeah, I know what one you're talking about.
Yeah. It's a concealed system.
Yeah. So that's going to be a fun challenge.
Hey, there's Mario.
But that's what I love about the whole maker community and the kind of the way the people in the community, the way their head works. So many people are, I need to do this. I'll go and find out how to do it because I can do lots of other kind of similar things, practical things in my hands. So why can't I do that? So you're looking at the, you know, you knit, you crochet, you do your sewing, you do your wood pyrography and your wood turning. All of those things are kind of, they have a fairly set sequence of things that you do with your hands.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
so plumbing is completely different, but it's still, hopefully Steve will back me up on this, being an ex-central heating plumber, there's sort of procedural things to do in plumbing. You've got to connect this and connect that, and you've got to get it the right way round and all those sorts of things, but it's still working with your hands. And if you can get that mentality right, yeah, what's the worst that could happen? You could flood the house, or
oh,
You could
it's
end
also
up
very
with a hot
much,
flush.
that you need to have attention to detail and the will to figure it out, and that's the same whether I'm sewing something. I need attention to detail, and I need to be able to see a problem and say, okay, I have no idea how to continue, but I'll figure it out. And to me, in that sense, tiling a bathroom is the exact same as sewing a bag, because you need to just take your time and look up how it works and be precise, and yeah.
And you know, you've got so many opportunities, for want of a better expression, open to you now, because your house becomes your canvas.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, it kind of fits with the personality that you were describing earlier, where you get into one thing and then you flip to something else, and then you go back to it months later once you've worked out how to do knitting, and then, oh, now I need a pair of socks or a hat or something. So you can go back to it months afterwards. You can go, oh, I'll do a bit of plumbing. Now I can do this. Now I can do that. And that's, yes. But presumably, because you've got a garage with your new house as well, haven't you?
Yes.
So a garage, which is, you know, not for putting cars in, obviously.
But we have a garage, but no car. So that's the perfect combination.
Oh, there you go.
Even better.
Perfect.
So presumably that's already, if it hasn't already been kitted out as a workshop, it has been earmarked thus far.
Definitely. I have a corner already as a little workspace for me, but we still have bikes in there and all sorts of other stuff that needs their own place before I can take over the whole garage, but that is part of the plan.
Excellent. So have you earmarked that for yourself and basically said to your husband, that's mine?
Well, it was clear before we even started looking at houses, like, I want a place where I can have a workshop, whether I have to build it or it's already there. So every house we looked at, it was always like, okay, so this could be my workshop. So it's just been part of the checklist.
Well, Alan, we've kind of talked a lot about you, and you do a lot of your own sewing and or crocheting, but that's you do a lot more than that. I mean, I've looked at your channel, and I know that you've done pyrography. I remember that you made a clock out of some old books once. You made a Nintendo Switch thing. You did a USB drive. I mean, so you're not just. I mean, while you do a lot of seamstress and crocheting and things of that nature, you're not limited to that. You're kind of all over the board, aren't you?
Yeah. And
I love it. And that's great.
The thing is that it's not necessarily the craft itself that interests me, but it's the learning how to do it and what the rules are and what you can and cannot do. And the fact that I've been doing a lot of sewing and crochet and all that sorts of stuff is because we were living in a very tiny apartment. And for a sewing machine, all you need is a little bit of space on the table.
Right.
So those were very manageable in a small room. So is pyrography, so is glass engraving and resin casting. You only need a little bit of space for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically tried all the things I could try in that space.
But now you have a bigger space, so now you've got a bigger world to play in. And do you mind if I say I have a favorite? I have a favorite of that you did, and it's it's probably pretty obvious why. I think your bacon scarf may be something that I want. Because I want to own a bacon scarf. That thing was awesome, by the way.
Now you know how.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like, yeah, with these fingers, I don't know, Ellen. That might, that might be up the same river as your quilt. It's like that may never happen. Sorry,
yeah.
But totally love that.
That was a fun one.
And it's a tie between that and Al's chef's hat, just because Al's. Let's face it, Al's out in the chat today, and Al is a nut, and that's why we love him.
I've seen that hat in person, and that is a work of art in its own right. Watch the video, obviously see how it's made, but the thing that I am more and more thinking about with YouTube is. And I'm not saying that you did this. In fact, I'm going to completely disprove it. You can make something look a lot better with editing.
Mm.
You know,
really? Show me how. How do you do that?
Don't get me wrong. But if you can fake a building blowing up or a car crash, you can make a dovetail joint look a bit better in a picture. And I know that's going to annoy a lot of people. And that's not the road I want to try to. It's not the road I want to go down. But you can. I've done it. I'm sure lots of other people have done it before as well. But I've held that hat in my mitts that you made, Ellen, and the stitches, they're straight, they're parallel, they're perfect. You know, there's not a wonky, there's not a misstitch, there's not a little loop hanging off, there's not a loose thread anywhere. It is perfect, and it was brilliant.
Richard, all right. The real question here is: Did you put the hat on, Richard? Did you? Put
I did not put the hat on. No. I wanted to.
That's a picture I would like to see. Go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry.
Did you also brought Laura Camp's coat over to make a central? Did you not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was another one that we actually got to see as well. That came out really, really nice as well.
Yeah, I was really happy with that.
And the
it was quite a process.
Because you did the Fools with Tools podcast T-shirt as well, didn't you? I think you wore that at Maker Central.
Oh, Skull and Spade. Brett's.
Was it the Brett's T-shirt? Was it?
Yeah.
The red background and the tear and all that. But that kind of goes back to what I was saying about the hat. They're not simple projects. You know, to make a coat is not a simple project.
No, well, it wouldn't be for me. If I tried to do it,
there'd be for me either.
Well, there'd be one arm longer than the other, and the zipper wouldn't line up. I mean, no way. So, yeah, I'm not gonna. I don't think there's anything easy about sewing. Period. That's just because I don't know how to sew, so it looks hard to me. But everything
looks hard if you don't know how to do it.
Exactly. So,
yeah, I've used a sewing machine on occasions. I wouldn't say I can sew, but I could probably make a little phone cover thing, like a little pouch or a pocket or something. But a coat is a much more complicated. It's lots and lots of little projects, all complicated, and they've all got to be spot on and right. Otherwise, like Chris said, you end up with one arm not just longer than the other, but it can be in the wrong place, or it could be twisted, or there's all sorts of variables to complicate it.
To give you some insight into that, the one I gave to Laura is actually the fourth one I made.
Oh, wow.
Because I had never made a jacket before. and I know enough about my skill level to know that the first one isn't going to be perfect. So I actually first, because I made my own pattern, I first made a very simple one without lining or pockets or anything, just to see if I thought the size was going to be good and the pattern was good. It was a bit tight, so I made it a bit bigger. Then I made one out of very cheap fabric just to see if I liked the new pattern. So that was both without lining. Then I made a jacket for myself that had everything, all the pockets and all the lining and everything. So that was basically the first real jacket I made. And it was basically practice. Like if this one didn't turn out right, it's okay. And then once I had sort of a feeling I sort of know how to do this, then I made the fourth jacket, which is the one I gave to Laura. So it's really a learning process, and it as long as you accept that, then it's fine.
And making something like that is not like knitting and crocheting. I mean, I don't knit and I don't crochet, but I've hung around with Catherine. I don't know how she's allowed it, but for long enough to work out that when you drop a stitch or something goes wrong on a knitting project, you can just pull it all apart and
you can go back and sort of redo it.
Yeah, but that's not quite the same thing with sewing, though, is it? Because yes, you can unpick the stitching and move a pocket that's you decide is not in the right, but if you've cut the pattern to make the sleeves too short, you can't uncut them and make them longer. It's the same like with a piece of wood. You can't cut it longer. You've got to get a new bit, and that
exactly.
There's a lot of variables in that.
Well, you can always take the patchwork to a new level, and in the woodworking world, glue on another piece, meaning stitch on. It's like, oops, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. But I don't. That's
just
probably
it's supposed to be that way. Then it's fine.
Yeah, it's like that's one of those mistakes that turns into one of those unintentional design change. It's like, here we go.
My grandmother was a seamstress years ago, and I just remember sitting and watching her lay all the patterns out and sew everything together, and it kind of reminded me much the same other kind of construction where you're following a plan and putting everything together. So I'd say it's very similar to it's no different. I know there's skill in doing the sewing part of it, but even I mean, I've seen people mess up an Airfix model from not following the plans properly. So I suppose your project is only as good as your plan when you're doing the sewing.
Yeah, I think it's very similar actually to woodworking. Like people make a 3D model or a drawing of what they want to make. They think, okay, how much material do I need? What lengths do I need to cut the pieces at? And then you start thinking, how do I put it together? And one way is using joinery and all that sorts of thing for woodwork, which is a skill you then have to learn. And for sewing, you would then have to learn that skill. But up to that point, it's all the same. It's all components, and you plan it out. And
And the bag that you made recently, the Adam Savage bag, that pertains to that quite well, because you've got the straps. They've got to be sewn onto the sides before the bag's made into a bag, and there's all these little components that need to be put on because you can't get it in the sewing machine once it's got to a certain stage. There's an awful lot of chat in here, which I'm.
Richard, are you talking about the bag that you did for the Adam Savage EDC 1 bag?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because that was cool too. I mean, that's really well done. That was. I mean. I don't follow Adam Savage as closely, so I don't know what he uses that for. But I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, it's a really nice design.
It reminded me a lot. I hadn't seen Adam's bag. I later then went and kind of whizzed through. Was it has he done like a second version of it?
Yeah. So this was the first one, and then he did a second one that's smaller and sort of simpler in design. And he made a video of making that one.
I think the one I saw, it was like a white canvas with a red star or something on it that started.
Yeah,
that was the
that's
one I
the second one, yeah.
But it reminded me a lot of a couple of the bags that Jimmy made out of a very thick, like denim-y, canvasy sort of stuff. That with that open top and the wire in the top. That was the thing I got in my head. And then obviously because I do sometimes read the description. and then worked out that it was someone else's completely. But it was that sort of.
I watched that video with my daughter, and she said it looks like Mary Poppins' bag.
It does, yeah.
Mary Poppins, but that's true, I guess.
Would your sewing machine be able to handle like a proper carpet fabric to make like a proper carpet bag?
I don't know. I can try.
Well,
I mean, it definitely has its limits because it's a home sewing machine and not an industrial one.
Okay, that was gonna be my next question. What kind of sewing machine did you have? Because I know that there's a lot of there's a lot of I can't remember. There's a lot of Oriental makers that make sewing machines that people use for industrial use, and I don't remember. I'm not an expert in sewing. My sister-in-law is. She does a lot of that, and she has. And because when she was young, she was Korean, by the way. She worked in one of those Korean sweatshops to make money for the family, and she used these sewing machines, and she's very good at what she does. But she has one begins with a K. I can't remember the name of the sewing machine itself, but anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was curious. What kind do you have? What kind of sewing machine is it do you have? I mean, here in the States, Singer seems to be the home sewing machine that most people have. I don't. What is it that you have?
I have a brother.
A brother. Okay.
Which I mean, they have Singers here too, and there's lots of other brands. I've only ever had this one, so it's hard for me to compare. But it's really a home sewing machine. So not an industrial one, and I can see it's nice to see more people in this community getting into sewing, but many of them seem to be getting industrial ones. So those are the really heavy duty ones that can do thick layers of leather and all sorts of stuff.
And they're not cheap either, by the way. That's an expensive tool. The industrial ones are not cheap.
And the main issue that for me is that they are usually like one function machines, or at least very limited in function. Which can be fine, but it depends on the type of work you do. And I mean, mine is pretty fancy. It can do an automatic buttonhole. You just press go and it makes a buttonhole. And you can't do that on those machines. So there's limitations that come with them, but they're much stronger. So
I actually own 2 sewing machines, and they're both broken because they were home. Yeah, I broke them both.
It's a user problem, Richard, not the machine. That's not.
No, honestly, it was because the timing. I broke the timing.
Okay.
So where the bobbin goes around and the needle comes down, and obviously it's all got to be timed correctly. And if you try and put too thick a material through it, it will knacker all the gears because there are basically plastic gears in them, and they get chewed up. And then you've got a needle trying to jam down when it's not in the right place, and it just tries to peck through the metal bit around the hole, and it gets. Yeah, apparently they can be repaired, but I don't know.
They can be, but I mean that's the problem with cheap sewing machines. And I don't know how expensive these were, but you often see them now for €100 or 150, but they're all plastic, so they're not up to as much abuse as the more expensive ones.
You could probably turn up a pair of trousers with them, but if you're trying to go through half a dozen layers of denim and with a bit of nylon reinforcement in there, it doesn't work. I can assure you. Well, not
it's like any other tool. Like, the more you want to use it, the better one you should get. If it's just for making your curtain shorter, then it's fine.
But then I guess the problem we have with our sort of mentality is you know to get the best one you can afford at the time, but you also at the same time have to resign yourself to the fact that a little way down the line you will go, I wish I'd spent a bit more and got the next better one, or because it's always the case.
That's true with every friggin' tool. I mean, I spent almost $1,000 on a table saw and wished I should have waited and spent $2,000. It's like it's
never good enough.
It's a rabbit hole. It's never good enough. I mean, just get what works and be happy.
Start with a Fisher Price and work your way up.
Yeah, start with Fisher Price.
I was going to make the cardboard.
The one I have.
Thank you, Jamie. I needed that.
Jim Dockrell's asked actually in the chat, do you have plans to buy it says sarging machine. I don't even know what a sarging machine is.
Yeah. So it's basically the machine that makes the sort of industrial looking seams on the inside of clothing. If you buy clothing, there's often this stitch that has 4 frets. and it both cuts the fabric and stitches it, and you don't have to do any extra stitching.
Oh, wow.
So it makes work a lot faster, which is why they use them in the factories. I've been thinking about getting one because basically you can do everything with just a normal sewing machine, but then a serger makes it quicker or some things easier. But if you just have a serger, you can't do everything. Like you always need the regular one, which is what I have. Every time I thought about it, it's like, okay, it takes up a lot of extra room that we didn't have in the small apartment, and then it costs a lot of money, and I can do all the things without it. It just takes a bit longer. So I've never made that step, and now I do have room for it, but there's also a lot of other toys I want to buy. So right now it's not high on my priority list.
Got it. Billy McGonigal asks, and I don't know that anybody here is going to have the answer to this, Billy, but he wants to know: is buying a secondhand sewing machine a bad idea? I guess he says he sees there are a lot of them online for like less than £50. I guess just like anything in the secondhand world, Billy, it's gonna really depend on the machine and who owned it prior to you, and if you can use it prior to needing to plunk down the cash. I mean, because if it still works and it's a quality machine, why not? I mean, it's just.
If it still works, it doesn't really matter, I think, that much who had it before you.
Okay.
But if it needs to be a good quality machine from the start, because if it's one of those plastic ones, after a couple of years, it's not going to be much good anymore. But if you buy one, either an industrial machine or just a very good, strong machine from 10 years ago, it'll probably keep going another 10. So it really depends on the quality in the first place.
All right, there you go, Billiam. So the rest of the world 3, Chris still 0.
Oh, and one thing that I learned, in sewing machines, the heavier the machine, it's actually better. So that's one thing to look for, because it has a steel frame and it's better components. It doesn't wobble as much, so heavy is good.
That makes a lot of sense because plastic isn't heavy.
Yeah.
It's the inside as well. One thing I would like to kind of broach on, and I am conscious of the time, Chris, don't worry, is that you, I think fairly recently, got into wood turning. Is that right? I seem to remember seeing a post on your Instagram, which was a beautiful vase, beautiful turned vase, and I was expecting to see this lovely bouquet of flowers that your husband had brought home from work for you, but no, it was a load of spindle blanks. Is that
Yes.
right? That was on your. So when did you enter the rabbit hole of wood turning, and how's that going?
Oh, I took a weekend class, I think in March or February this year, and I loved it. I mean, it's just as everyone says. It's once you start, it's difficult to stop. But we were still living in the small apartment, so no place for a lathe. And then we moved here, and I kept my eye on the secondhand market. And then I think, not even 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago maybe, one popped up that had been, it was good quality and well maintained and everything. So I just jumped on it and bought it. And yeah, now it's in the garage.
So what can we expect to be? What have you been turning, and what projects?
I've mostly sort of been practicing my tool control. So I've been making a lot of, how do you call those things you spin and then they turn?
Tops.
Spin
A
top.
spinning top, yeah.
I made a lot of tops that don't work. And I made a few that do work, so there's progress. And I've been making lots of handles and things for stuff. Like I put a big handle on my seam ripper because they come with teeny tiny handles, which are very annoying. So those sorts of things, just spindle turning for now.
Mm.
There you go.
Yeah,
Steve.
I watched the handle that you turned, and I was very impressed. Well, Ellen, so well done. Round of applause for that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, that came out nice.
I'll
You just,
Makes my life a lot easier.
you just need some Yorkshire grit to go on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Glenn.
Yeah. Just it was a subtle hint. Jesus God.
Oh, don't even start. It's been at me all night. I'm not even going to go there.
Okay.
So with all these different disciplines that we've talked about, I mean, obviously, I mean, I certainly know you best for your knitting and your crocheting, because I know Kat and I will both sit and watch those videos together, and then the quilting video, which you still haven't finished. Naughty.
I'll get to it.
Yeah, eventually. Well, you said originally you kind of take on things that draw your interest, and whatever you decide you're going to figure out. But where do you actually get that inspiration from? What do you go, oh, shiny, I want to kind of work on that? Or do you look at an item and you think, I'd like to work out how to make something like that? Or do you have a skill and you go, actually, I need a blanket, or I need a hat or a scarf or a bag? Or what's the draw?
I mean, it's different every time, but in general, I think it's mostly seeing something and thinking, oh, I wonder how that's made. and wanting to learn it, like, wearing a lot of knitted clothes and hats and things. How does that work? and seeing people making clothes, and I've looked at patterns and it just confused me completely, which for me is sort of an invitation to learn how it goes and not be confused by it anymore. So I see things and I want to know how they're made. And now I'm very much looking forward to trying some woodworking things, because we've got a house to put things in. It's now almost completely empty. And a table, that's just a top and some legs. I have no idea how to make it, but I think I can figure it out. And that's the fun part, to get to figure that out.
If the spin top falls off, that ain't straight.
Yeah.
I'll remember that.
Well, you've got a lathe now, so you can turn the legs for a table.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
There you go.
So do you go from, I want to learn how that works and how that gets made, and then go, actually, I'll make that into a video? Or do you kind of work backwards? I mean, how do these projects, and I'm assuming that many of the projects that you make never make it onto your channel, they just are made, but do you pick the project that you're making and say, actually, that might be a good video? Or do you do it the other way around and say, I'm going to make a video about something and then work back?
So actually, I think almost every project that I've made since I started my YouTube channel has been a video. And that's because I think I want to make this, and I'll also make a video. So it really starts with the project for me. And then I figure, if I'm doing it, I'll make a video of it. So it always starts with wanting to make something.
So it's almost like your channel is kind of a happy accident that falls out of the project itself. It's making a project, it might as well be a video, and work it that way rather than the other way around.
So I make something I want to make, and then I make a video of it. It's not that I'm thinking, okay, this video did well, I want to make more of those, so I can make more videos. That's not the way around.
And that really fits in terms of when you look through your channel's kind of library or catalogue, the diversity of, I mean, certainly my channel is mostly wood and routing videos, and Steve's is mostly CDs and turn-in videos and all the rest of it. I think Jamie makes the occasional scroll.
Pure entertainment. Pure entertainment.
Yours is completely like almost ching ching lights all over the place.
Yeah.
And that's what draws me to your channel, because it's what's it going to be this week? It's completely unpredictable.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what's going to be the next project, so it's unpredictable. Yeah.
Well, that was going to be my next question.
But it's also very closely related to why I make these things. I do it to relax. And as soon as I start making them because I want to make videos or because I'm following what works well online or something, that takes all of the fun out of it.
Yeah.
And the whole relaxation part then goes away. So sometimes it's tempting to think, oh, but this got such good reactions, maybe I should do more of that. But I really try not to do that. I try to, like, I make something and I put the camera on, but I still have my music playing and I pretend the camera's not there, because that way I can actually enjoy it. And then that's why I do voiceover. So afterwards I actually come and make it into a video. But at that time I'm just playing music and all those things. And yeah.
I suppose you could.
I was going to say you.
Go on,
Sorry,
Steve.
Jamie.
Go on.
I was going to say that you have a particular style with your video where you do a lot of close-ups and very crisp, clean photography. Do you style your way of filming around somebody else's? Have you got kind of a favorite YouTuber that you follow, or have you had any training in camera work or anything like that?
No training. It's mostly worked itself out. Like my first videos look very different than they do now. But as far as inspiration, it's definitely Laura Kampf. And she does a lot of close-ups as well and very, very clean shots. And I very much like that style. But I have to admit that for me, it's more of a practical thing, because if I do the close-ups, you know, like I say, I just make the thing whenever I feel like it. So I don't have to make sure like my hair looks good or the background is cleaned up or whatever, you know. It's just close-up, it's my hands. I don't have to worry about anything else. So that just sort of follows naturally.
I really have a kind of an admiration for those kind of channels, because they're just about the making. There's, like you say, you don't worry about whether your hair's done or anything. There are, I don't want to say limited production things, but you just get on and make stuff, and that's what you do, and you make whatever it is that week is what gets made because you enjoy making it, not the complications which, you know, inevitably end up being a constraint, for want of a better term. So yeah, keep your channel like that, Ellen, because that's awesome. So,
don't change it, or Rich is going to call you on the carpet. That's it.
You've changed.
No, you haven't got time to make all these changes. You've got to get that quilt done.
Jamie, didn't you have something you wanted to say that you and Steve got crossed up? What's up with you?
I did, but now I want to sack Steve because he stole my question.
Oh, okay, never mind.
That was basically exactly what I wanted to say.
Well, it's nice knowing you guys.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Steve. This is your first and last episode ever. Thank you.
What are you going to do?
Jamie's the boss. When it comes down to it, Jamie rules the land here. So that's all there is to that. So fall in line, Steve, or, you know, sorry.
Strike one.
Red's in the chat. He's just asked. I think it's just directed at me, actually. He said, "Did Richard just make a Firefly reference?" And possibly it wasn't deliberate if I did, and I can't remember what I said. But that's a good segue into something else that you're working on with Brett and the rest of the team. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
The full fly thing?
Yeah. It's so great to see that everyone likes it so much, because it's basically just us goofing around and having fun. So it's great to see people joining in on that and liking it. Yeah, it was the week after Maker Central. The 7 of us were at Steve's and Jazz's place, and somehow we got to talking about Firefly. I don't even know how. So this old TV show. And we all liked it, and we started dividing up characters, and suddenly there was talks of making videos, and it sort of all rolled into this fun project we're now doing, where we're making our own episodes and playing our characters. So it's just a lot of fun to do.
And because you've not done your one yet, have you?
Yeah, I knit a hat for Jane. For
yes,
Elle.
you did. Yes, yes. My mistake. I have seen that video, but I was expecting you to be more Kaylee, not knitting a hat.
See, now Richard's casting you in roles, Ellen. I mean, it's like, okay,
Yeah, directly.
that's just.
We don't know if Kaylee knits or not. She doesn't on the show, but
She probably does. I mean, if you can fix.
Nobody dies in TV world unless the producers don't want to pay them anymore. I mean, how many times have the people? I mean, I can name several shows right now where people have died, and the next season they didn't die; they're back. It's like, oh my god, it's a miracle. Oh,
Dirty Den all over again.
Nobody dies.
Fantastic. Well, I feel a bit like silly now because you have made the video, and I've
yeah,
forgotten.
that's okay.
So,
There's more to come.
excellent. I'm glad you said
Nothing
that.
there then, Richard.
Well,
So
he
good.
hasn't watched the ones that you haven't made yet.
Well, those ones I haven't watched now, obviously.
Is your time machine broken?
Yeah, what's the matter, Richard? Can you
Well,
go back to the future?
What I really need is it's like a really good ship's engineer to come along and fix it for me. But you know,
I'll see if I know someone.
There you go, Red. There's a reference.
I'm not on about anything, Al. Shut up. Go ahead.
Well, that was all I was going to do. I was just flicking through the chatter, or trying to. It's difficult because it's on a different screen, and I've only got a limited attention span, as you all know. But yeah, that was that. So you don't know what you're going to be working on next, but where can people find your channel if they don't know? I mean, most of the people that are in the chat actually know you probably better than we do, to be perfectly honest. But if there's anyone listening in the future, where can they find all your stuff?
So it's all under Crafts with Ellen. That's my YouTube channel. That's my Instagram, Facebook. Not that I use it much. Twitter. It's all Crafts with Ellen.
Excellent. And while I'm thinking about this has just popped in my head. Your Crafts with Ellen, your bingo card, which I've got just over there. I'll try and grab it in a second. Where did that come from? Where was that idea born? Because that's very unique and non-sticker related, that one.
It was actually the sticker challenge. So the original design, it was Brett and Laura were having their sticker design challenge. And I think it was it wasn't the first one I made. So I was basically getting in on the fun and throwing out random ideas of designs and practicing my Illustrator skills because I'm not very good at it. So it was a good reason to practice. And it was just one of the designs that I made up, and I got really into it. Like once I don't know where the idea came from, but once I thought of it, it was really fun to come up with all the little things that most people would recognize. And yeah, it's just this joy of recognition, basically, like a lot of things that people have experienced or will experience. And
yeah, I think when I read through every little square, I think I basically could call house straight away on that one, because everything that was on the card, like you say, you could relate to. But it was nice to see that, but not a sticker, if that makes sense. Because to me, it stood out even more because it wasn't a sticker, even though it turns out that it was born of that idea.
Well, it was born that way, but then when I thought about actually printing them, because I quite liked the idea, I thought, well, no, this needs to be paper. You know, you need to be able to put it on a pegboard and actually start crossing things off. So yeah.
Are you going to be doing something similar for Maker Central next year?
Maybe.
Ooh.
I like that non-committal sort of maybe.
A scratch card.
Make it a scratch and sniff card for Jamie. And you know what scent I'm thinking of that he should have.
Guess the fabric.
Ellen, wow. It has been awesome having you on with us today. Is there anything that we haven't? Is there anything that you want to get out there that we haven't touched on yet? Is there anything that you want to put forward to people that might be listening, or do you really not care and just want to be done with this nonsense?
I'm done talking to you guys.
You could be done talking to us.
No, I mean nothing in particular. I just hope to meet all of you at Maker Central next year.
I think we're all going to make it.
Looking forward to seeing you again next year, because I don't think we had quite long enough to chat I would have liked to sit and chat for a little bit longer with you, but it was just so crazy busy. And
Yeah,
I
mean, that's how I feel
everybody-
about most people.
most people, but not me.
Well, how could they miss you? I mean,
You
Richard
were
walks into
cats,
the
so
room
that
and whatever.
I
Wow,
get what you mean.
But the weekend's too short.
it is too
Yeah.
short.
Definitely. Make it longer next year, Nick.
Yes. Work on the time machine.
Well, we need
Yes.
to get someone over here to fix it. I'm looking at the time. I appreciate the time is getting on. It's now nearly 10:30, but I think we started a little bit early because of the show. I've completely lost track of it. What's going on, Chris?
It's up to you. Anybody want to do a shout out? Ellen, you got anybody that you've been watching that you want to give some love to today? You want to give somebody some recognition?
Yeah, actually there is. I've watched a video by Make with Miles. I don't know how old he is, but he's young. And he actually made the EDC 2 bag that Adam Savage designed, so the second version of it, in the very similar way I did. Like, he got the pattern and he laid it all out and he made it. And it looks really, really cool. And you see him working in his father's sewing workshop. All sorts of really cool machines. So yeah, definitely check that out.
And then the name of the channel again is Make with Miles.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we'll get that in the description on Wednesday. There you go. Awesome.
Isn't he in his early teens, roughly?
He's very young. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, he is quite young. I know who you're talking about.
And his videos are great. All the camera work and everything. It's very impressive.
The name rings a bell. If it's who I'm thinking of, I think he's in his very early teens, or possibly a couple of years pre-teen, but double figures.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, his take on the Adam Savage EDC 2 bag. Right, got it. Awesome.
Yeah, that's the one.
Cool. Have you got any shout outs, Chris, that you need to do this week?
I do actually. If I could do one real quick. I don't know if you guys have, have seen Sam, DIY Huntress, put out a video, and she's been putting out a video recently, like once a month, and it's good to see her on YouTube again. For a while, she wasn't able to do so, I think, because of school. But if you haven't had a chance, she's teamed up with Ryobi Power Tools on how to make. And the first project she's doing with them was how to make a wall-mounted bike rack, and it's just good to see her on YouTube. So if you have a chance, and if you're not familiar with the DIY Huntress, give Sam a look. Definitely worth the effort to go through her channel and check out the things that she's made. She's cool.
That might be the kind of channel that you might be getting into, Ellen, with your kind of householdy sort of projects and things like that.
Oh yeah, I've been watching her videos for a long time.
Yeah, she's great. She's great.
Yeah.
Wicked. What about Jamie? I'm deliberately leaving Steve off because I don't want to drop him in it and not have a shout out, because it's his first time and all that. He's doing a better job than I am.
Hey, I'm ready. I'm prepared.
Yeah, I have. But obviously, but first I've got to do the old Jamie's page. For Jamie's page today, there's been a couple of people in the community that's recently just passed 100,000 subscribers, and that is Sebastian Alari and Zach Herberholtz of ZH Fabrications. So congratulations to you two.
Absolutely. Well deserved on both parts.
Today,
Well done,
obviously,
guys.
the live recording of the podcast on the Sunday is Mrs. Yorkshire Grit's birthday. That's Joe Senior. So happy birthday to Joe.
Nice.
Yeah, happy birthday, Joe.
Happy birthday, Joe.
Right, my shout out. My shout out goes to a channel called Cammy's Garage, or Garage, however you want to pronounce it, whether you're in the States or the UK. We're not going into that argument again.
I'd lose if we got into it.
I'm not going to actually shout out any particular video, but I'm going to shout out the whole entire channel. And quite honestly, this channel deserves way more subscribers than he's actually got. I mean, he does some absolutely incredible wooden sculptures, and he does animations and drawings. I mean, he was on he done animations for The Simpsons at one point for a little while. So yeah, my shout out's Cammy's Garage or Garage.
Awesome. Maybe we should get in touch with him, see if he wants to come on with us.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
All right, awesome. All right, Steve, you're up.
Yay! My shout out is
Really, calm down.
It's
Steve, calm down.
it's Sai Mars from Sai's Corner. I love watching Sai. She's got a brilliant channel. I've followed her for quite a long time now, and she's a very, very wacky individual when she's on the camera. Very funny to watch, but you just can't help but smile when you watch her. There's not like that. There's not one particular video that I want to shout out because they're all just as good as each other. She does a lot of intaja and scroll work. So, I mean, that's a winner for Jamie straight away.
Right, can we rehire him?
But she does a lot of the stuff that a lot of people wouldn't talk about with intaja, with how to fix gaps and problems and stuff like that. She's really clever with the way she describes problems, and she's just brilliant. So Sai's Corner, fantastic.
Awesome, Richard.
My shout out this isn't a channel, it's a very specific video, and I'm pretty sure that this video, there's loads of them on there because it's actually from an old TV show in the UK called Two Ronnies, and it's very I don't think they'd necessarily be allowed to broadcast it today, but this goes back to the sort of 1970s, 1980s kind of British humour, and it's all about how to put up a garden shed, and it's hilarious. It's just one of those kind of 3 or 4 minute long comedy sketch.
Well, that's Al's first video, isn't it? You're talking about the building of the hack shack.
Yeah. No, it's not. We've had this conversation.
Lifting up a whole side wall with just his legs.
Sorry, Al. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, this is quite amusing, actually, about the whole. We'll talk about this later, Chris. No, it's a funny video, very funny video. It will keep people amused, and I liked it, and I want to share it with other people, give people a laugh as well. So
4 candles are false.
No, it's not that one, but it's a very similar sort of comedy. We'll leave it at that. But I think that pretty much wraps up the show tonight. Unless anyone's got anything they want to add in at the last minute.
Nope.
It doesn't appear to be. Right, well, so just Ellen, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being such a good sport and putting up with my ill-prepared, poorly executed, and basically rubbish hosting.
Well, thank you for having me.
It was genuinely interesting having you on, and I'd love to see you again at Maker Central next year, and I'll be following along far more closely on your videos because I want to see that quilt get finished. So and I'm not gonna
someone would come here and help me.
I'm sure that's a hint to Kat, not to Richard, because I know she doesn't want your mitts in there.
Well, Kat's got loads of times to do some sewing because she can't turn. Because funny enough, Richard's been on at you all night about not finishing a certain project, but he's still got to build a step for Kat so she can stand in front of the lathe, and he still hasn't done it. Have you, Richard?
I haven't. No, I haven't. I've been doing other things.
See, pot calling kettle black again. Here we go.
I'm not being funny, but Kat's got a scroll saw. She can do it herself.
Oh, somehow, okay, whatever. I'm not going to go there.
It's devolving into exactly that kind of show now, isn't it? So, well, thank you for Ellen for coming on. As I've already said, thank you for everyone who's listening. And if you're not listening, then we will say what we like about you. Probably afterwards. So until next week, everyone have good fun, stay safe, and we'll see you back here next week.
Awesome.
Cheerio.
Ellen, thanks for coming on with us. Steve, welcome to the podcast, my friend. It's been awesome, and hopefully we're gonna have some fun.
No, thank you for having me.
All right, we'll talk to you guys next week.
See you later.
Catch you later, guys.
Bye.